Okay. It looks like we are live. Hello and welcome to the MMA Live Chat Show. I'm Rich Davie and it's Sunday, October 5th, 2014. On today's show, we're going to be discussing the UFC Fight Night 53 Nelson versus Story event and the Fight Night 54 MacDonald versus Saffiedine event. And we'll also recap our fight predictions that we made on the last show. On today's show, we have yours truly and Fred Kirby. Thanks for joining me to discuss the UFC Fight Night 53 and the UFC Fight Night 54 events. Buddy, go ahead and say hello to anybody that might be listening.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me, Rich. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
All right, let's get started here. We're going to make this a really quick show since we really didn't do a full prediction show on the last show that we did. We kind of just threw out our picks there on the spur of the moment. We didn't do all that well with our picks on the three fights from the post-fight show that we did on Friday there as far as the UFC Fight Night 53 event went there. Fred and Rich went 1-2 and Eddie went 0-3. And with the points that we award for, picking the fights correctly and method and round and so on and so forth, Rich went 1-2, 7 points out of 30. Fred went 1-2, 4 points out of 30, and Eddie went 0-3 with 0 points out of 30. All right, let's talk about the main event there, Gunnar Nelson versus Rick Story. Rick Story defeats Gunnar Nelson by split decision with the judges' scorecards reading 47-49, 49-46, and 50-44. I did not get to see the Fight Pass event, so Fred, go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you thought about that fight.
A bit of a surprise here. I wouldn't go too crazy with it, though. Rick Story just has a lot more experience, I think, than Gunnar Nelson. A lot of people were kind of calling for Gunnar to drop the 155 after this. And I don't know. I think that might be a bit unwarranted. I thought that he looked okay. Rick Story definitely won a dominant decision. He controlled the fight, and he actually won the striking battle at range. Gunnar Nelson likes that karate style, and he likes to kind of lunge in with one big strike, but he just didn't have the power to actually hurt Story. So Story was able to just kind of bulldoze through those strikes and just rough him up and basically beat Gunnar Nelson up. And when Gunnar could get a hold of him, get him on the ground, he couldn't control Story in any kind of way. So a really good dominant performance by Rick Story. It keeps him, relevant, derailed a nice up-and-comer. But I wouldn't say it was necessarily detrimental for Gunnar Nelson. He looks like he needs to go back to the drawing board. He needs to evolve his striking a bit more to make it a bit more effective and possibly cause damage. But it wasn't the worst performance for Gunnar Nelson. I wasn't terribly disappointed in him.
Yeah, the comment you made about Story just, pretty much outstriking him through the whole fight there, that's what I was reading too from some of the comments that I saw on Twitter and Facebook there. And it's really interesting here how you've got one judge scoring at 50-44, another judge 49-46, and then another judge goes the opposite way with 47-49. Can you see any sort of argument for one judge scoring it for Gunnar Nelson like that?
No. Listen, I'm a Gunnar fan. I'm a big Gunny fan. I wanted him to win. I wanted him to do well, but he lost this fight. He clearly lost it. The judging is just a massive problem. I don't even know where to begin with how you would start to cleaning up judging in MMA. It's horrible. It was a bad decision, man. Rick Story won a clearly unanimous decision, and I don't know where the hell that card came from or what that judge was watching.
Maybe he was a hometown judge there and was scoring for the hometown boy.
Listen, if that's actually true, if hometown cooking is actually going on at this point in the game, that's absolutely ridiculous, and there is absolutely no place for that whatsoever. I would like to think that's not the case. I sure shit hope it's not. But
that guy was clearly watching a different fight there when one judge has it 50-44, another 49-46, and then he goes the other way, 47-49. That guy was either high on something or... I don't know what to say there, but clearly totally, out of character with the other scores there from the other judges.
Yeah, true.
And from what I've read out there as well as to how the fight went.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It was a wacky scorecard, but you get that shit everywhere too, though, man. You get these judges all over. You know, it's not neglected to any specific cards or all the time you'll get these scores where you're like, what the fuck was that? Diego Sanchez versus Ross Pearson jumps to mind. Just the fight actually went the wrong way in that circumstance, but you think kind of what the fuck are some of these judges watching, man?
Yeah,
What's going
I
on?
wrote an article on that one, and I called it the worst decision since Bisbee Hamel.
It's up there, man. It was a bad decision, but there are a lot of very bad decisions. I mean, we see it very, very often in this sport. And I would like to chalk it up to inexperienced judges, man. I just think that some guys don't know what the fuck they're doing. I think some of these guys are leftover dinosaurs from the boxing era, and they just do not know what they're doing when it comes to scoring a mixed martial arts fight.
Yeah, but we've even seen also where a lot of people are saying that maybe fighters, ex-fighters, should be the judges, but we've seen instances where ex-fighters have made the wrong calls as well, according to general consensus as far as the other judges go and what fans think, and even what the color commentators think too. So, yeah, it's hard to say because it's so wide open as to interpreting what you think is scoring points in fights. So, I guess that's always going to be a problem.
True, true. I'm not saying that judging will be easy. I do realize it is a hard job, and sometimes it's purely subjective. But most of the times it's pretty cut and dry. I just think there needs to be a course or something possibly for these guys to take to just do their research. And I don't know exactly how it should work, but there definitely needs to be some kind of something to be done with the judging. The judging is
Yeah.
atrocious.
Yeah, I agree with you because even on a couple of the shows that we've done in the past, I said there should be some sort of school where the judges and the refs have to go and get some sort of accreditation to show that they're all on the same page and they're scoring things, similarly, where it's not so wide open to, interpretation as far as, how they award points. Right, any
Yeah,
more comments? Any more comments on that one before we move on?
yeah, no, just with the judging thing, it'd be nice to see them held accountable for it too. You make two or three of these questionable calls and your ass is out. You know what I'm saying? Like, there just needs to be some kind of accountability for these judges making these horrendous calls.
I agree. I agree. All right, there. So wrapping this one up here, Rick Story defeats Gunnar Nelson by split decision with the judges' scorecards reading 47-49, 49-46, and 50-44. Fred went with Nelson by 7-3, 0 points. Eddie went with Nelson by 7-2, 0 points. I also went with Nelson by 7-2, 0 points. All right, moving on to the next one here. Akira Corassani versus Max Holloway. And Max Holloway defeats Akira Corassani by KO at 3 minutes 11 seconds of round one. Comments on that one, Fred? I did not see that one either, but I did see I believe it was the GIF of that knockout.
Yeah, Max Holloway looked like a fucking beast in this fight, man. Corassani never really got in the fight. Holloway's striking was pinpoint and accurate. It looked crisp and strong. If I'm not mistaken, Holloway's only losses in the division are to Bermudez and McGregor at this point. And obviously, seeing what McGregor has done and seeing where Bermudez is at in the pecking order of things, they're both doing very well right now in the division. Um, so, long story short, I think that Max Holloway is a really, really good fighter, and I think that he's going to get a nice little bump up in competition after this fight. I would like to see him fight somebody at least in the top 15, possibly even the top 12 or 10.
Yeah, yeah. There was a lot of talk about him, a lot of promise for him in the division there as soon as he came into the UFC there. So, yeah, I agree. Probably should be moving up to fight, somebody a little stiffer as far as competition goes there. All right, any more
Yeah.
comments on that one?
He's just been super active too, man. I think that he deserves a little bit of credit, man. He's kind of had almost a Donald Cerrone-esque year. He's fought a lot of times and he's looked really well since that loss to McGregor. So big ups to Holloway. He's looking really good, man.
Okay. All right, wrapping this one up here. Max Holloway defeats Akira Corassani by KO at 3 minutes 11 seconds of round one. And Fred chose Holloway by decision. He got 4 points. Eddie went with Corassani by decision, 0 points. And I went with Holloway by TKO and 2. I got 7 points. All right, let's move on to the last one that we spoke about on the pre-event show that we did where we did our rough predictions. Nicholas Backstrom versus Mike Wilkinson. Mike Wilkinson defeats Nicholas Backstrom by KO at 119 of round one, and that was another brutal knockout, huh? Nobody, I don't think many people expected it to go that way at all.
Yeah, I don't think so at all, man. Nicholas Backstrom was a huge favorite in this fight, and rightfully so. You know, this is one of those weird fights where I still kind of feel like, you know, Backstrom wins this fight, you know, 8 out of 10 times. He looked pretty good right up until the knockout, man, until he got clipped. He was getting a little cute throwing that front kick, the front teep kick to the face. He landed it once, and then he did it again, but he just didn't have enough stank on it, and Wilkinson just ate it and clobbered him for it. It was basically just one punch, man. He threw that kick and then ate a punch, and that pretty much knocked him out. And Wilkinson gave him a couple more for good measure afterwards, but Backstrom was done after that first punch. So I don't know. I still think Backstrom looks really good. I think that he'll still be a decent prospect in the division. But yeah, what are you going to do? He got caught, I guess.
So how did that work out? I know that you and Eddie were going back and forth thinking that the Swedes were going to get, you know, a clean sweep, or you were picking at least one of them to lose out of the four that you were mentioning there. How did that work out?
Let me see here. I don't really know. Well, I'm not very good. I guess Gunnar Nelson would be counted as an honorary Swede. He lost Ilir Latifi, which I actually had a lot of faith in. Good thing we didn't do picks for this fucking show, because I would have got hammered. I would have went with Ilir Latifi. He was a hometown guy, and he got creamed by Jan Blachowicz, which, for the record, he looked dynamite in that fight and should be somebody interesting to watch at 205. Corassani got smashed, and Backstrom got smashed. So let's see that. Fuck, 0-4, I think the Swedes went, right?
Yeah, that's what it's looking like.
Yeah. I don't think they won one fight. That kind of sucks for the Swedish fans a little bit, but.
All right, so let me wrap this fight up here, and then we'll talk about the fight bonuses for that event there. Mike Wilkinson defeats Nicholas Backstrom by KO at 1 minute 19 seconds of round one. Fred went with Backstrom by 7-1, 0 points. Eddie went with Backstrom by TKO and 2, 0 points. I went with Backstrom by 7-2, 0 points. All right, and the fight bonuses for this one here. The fight of the night went to Dennis Siever and Charles Rosa, earning $50,000 each. Max Holloway wins a $50,000 performance of the night bonus for his finish of Kira Corassani by KO at 3:11 in round one. And Mike Wilkinson also won a $50,000 performance of the night bonus for his finish of Nicholas Backstrom by KO at 119 of round one. All right, let's move on to the other event that happened yesterday here, UFC Fight Night 54, MacDonald versus Saffiedine. We did a little bit better with our picks on these three fights from the pre-fight show that we did on Friday there. Rich and Eddie went 3-0, and Fred went 2-1. Rich went 3-0 with 18 points out of 30. Eddie went 3-0 with 15 points out of 30, and Fred went 2-1 with 8 points out of 30. All right, let's talk about the main event here. Remember on the pre-event show there, I was telling you how Rory MacDonald said that he wanted to make a statement coming into this fight. We actually didn't think that it was going to be a stand-up event, but that's what it turned out to be there, and Rory MacDonald did, in fact, make that statement there. He actually defeated Tarek Saffiedine by TKO due to strikes at 1 minute 28 seconds of round three. What did you think of that one?
It was an impressive performance from Rory. I'm a little surprised, I guess. Not terribly surprised. And a bit like the first fight, I'm not terribly surprised, but I thought that Tariq Saffiedine was a better striker than that, I suppose. I thought that he landed a couple leg kicks, but I thought he would just tear into Rory's lead leg with those leg kicks. And Rory's a good striker, man. He's very technical. He kept that jab out there like he tends to do. He threw a lot of nice little front kicks and things to keep Tariq on the offense and keep him honest. And the way he ended the fight was beautiful. A nice overhand right, left upper hook combo, and he nailed him with the uppercut.
Yeah, Saffiedine actually hit him with a couple of... Go ahead.
Saffiedine just looked like he didn't really have no answer. That was, I guess, the surprising thing. I did expect deep down that Rory would probably win. He was the favorite, rightfully so, but I thought that he would need to utilize his wrestling a bit more to win the fight, and he basically just controlled the striking battle. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, Saffiedine actually was landing some of those kicks early on there because he was throwing that right leg kick to the outside left leg of MacDonald there, and it was hurting MacDonald because he started to become aware of that, and then he started trying to avoid it and evade it a little bit more, and then he just started when he became aware of that, he started just picking off Saffiedine with jabs. I mean, at the end of the second round there, Saffiedine's face was just all peppered up, bruises and contusions there. I mean, he was just, pretty beat up there at the end of round two there. So, yeah, it was pretty impressive there. And then the way that he finished there was pretty impressive. I don't think he's going to get a title shot right away after that, but, I mean, because there's already a fight, scheduled to take place, but he'll get the winner of that unless maybe something happens to one of the two guys who are supposed to be fighting for the title.
Yeah, I would totally expect Rory to get the winner of Hinder. That would make the most sense for sure, unless, like you said, somebody gets injured. But that fight's close enough at this point that I doubt he would even fill in for one of them. Let's just hope that nothing happens to neither one of those guys and that fight can play out. And then,
when is that fight happening, by the way?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I would think December maybe. Probably something. Yeah, December, I would think, sometime like that. I know that the next event is the Jose Aldo and Chad Mendes event. And then after that is the Kane, Velasquez, and Fabricio Verdun event in November. So it's probably either in early or late December.
Okay. All right, any more comments on that before we move on?
Nope, just a little surprised that Tariq Saffiedine and impressed with Rory's. And fun to see Rory get a finish. I like seeing him fight like this. I'll hand it to him. When Saffiedine hit the fucking ground, Rory was all over him, and I like watching that Rory MacDonald fight. So.
Yeah, did you see the way he looked at him after the end of the second round there? Like he was trying to get into his head, letting him know, hey, man, I'm all over your ass.
He actually had a fucking crazy look the whole time. He looked fucking focused, man. I'll give it to Rory. He looked very impressive, very focused. His striking was on point, and most importantly, his finishing, instinct was there. He finished the fight as soon as there was an opportunity. He was all over it and finished it.
Okay, let's wrap this one up here. MacDonald defeats Saffiedine by TKO due to strikes at 128 of round 3. Fred went with Saffiedine by decision, 0 points. Eddie went with MacDonald by 7-3, 7 points. And I went with MacDonald by decision, 4 points. All right, moving on to the next one here. The fight that you guys were kind of thinking that it was going to end a little bit quicker than it did. I kind of said that it was going to go to decision. I turned out to be right on that. Rafael Assuncao defeats Brian Caraway by unanimous decision with the judges' scorecards reading 30-27, 30-27, and 30-27. Yeah, Brian Caraway did a hell of a lot better than most people thought he was going to do, huh?
Yeah, he did all right. The only thing I really take away from this fight is that Brian Caraway is a tough-ass dude.
Man, he was eating shots all night like a kid who was looking for candy, huh?
Yeah, he took some big shots and he kept coming. He just didn't have nothing for his son now. He didn't have nothing in the striking realm. He could not grapple with him. If anything, I'm almost slightly disappointed that Assuncao didn't get the finish, or maybe didn't try a bit harder to get the finish. I kind of get annoyed watching fights like that where I feel like one guy's got the clear, noted advantage, but he doesn't want to take enough risks to actually finish the fight.
Yeah, he actually didn't look like he was having that easy of a time there. I mean, the judges' scorecards clearly show 30-27, 30-27, 30-27, and I think everybody thought the fight should have been scored that way. But, man, oh man, that Caraway can take some shots. I mean, he was eating knees and punches, and holy jeez, man.
Yeah, he's tough. He's tough. I will give him that, man. Like I said, Caraway just kept on coming. He kept eating shots, but he was just clearly outmatched. Assuncao's the way better fighter, and I'm assuming that he'll have to wait for Dominic Cruz and T.J. Dillashaw to do their thing, but he's definitely next in line at this point for sure. So.
Yeah. All right, so wrapping that one up there, Rafael Assuncao defeats Brian Caraway by unanimous decision with the judges' scorecards reading 30-27, 30-27, and 30-27. Fred went with Assuncao by 7-2, 4 points. Eddie went with Assuncao by 7-1, 4 points. And I went with Assuncao by decision, 10 points. All right, let's move on to the last one that we did on that last show. And apologies for that last show there. I was kind of outside, and when I listened to the show again, man, there was all kinds of static and noise there from the storm. But sometimes I have to go out on the patio to do the shows, otherwise the wife is making all kinds of noise in the kitchen. All right, so Darren Cruickshank versus Anthony Njokuani. Darren Cruickshank defeats Anthony Njokuani by unanimous decision with the judges' scorecards reading 30-27, 30-27, 30-27. And Cruickshank looked pretty good in that one, huh?
Yeah, he did. He kind of surprised me and pulled out his grappling prowess to win this fight. I kind of thought I was going to get to see an interesting striker battle, and it didn't really play out like that. So I was a little bummed about that. But I think that the Detroit superstar just knew that he needed to get a win. I think he knew he had a grappling advantage and just took advantage of it and decided to not necessarily engage Njokuani where he actually had a chance in the fight.
Yeah, I actually thought in round two there was some striking going on there. And I actually thought in round two, after he rocked Njokuani in the second round, I thought he was going to go for the TKO, but he let up and he didn't follow up on that, man. Do you recall that when he blasted him with, I believe it was a right hand, and then he kind of let Njokuani, get away?
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's what I mean. I think Cruickshank was just more worried about getting the win this time. I think he was trying to play it safe and be nice and careful and cautious and not get sloppy and get caught with anything. Usually he's a very good finisher. Like I said, usually he's got a really killer finishing instinct. But for some reason, he felt like he played it a little safe. He got the win, though. What are you going to do? I mean, he looked good for sure. He just, I felt like he did play it a little safe.
Yeah, he did look good there.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good win for him for sure. Like I said, I would have liked to have seen him take a little bit more. Like you said, when he had him rocked, it would have been nice to see him jump on the finish and try to get a finish right there. But he kind of felt like you let him off the hook a little bit. So.
Yeah. All right. Any more comments on that one before we move on here?
Nope.
All right, wrapping that one up there, Darren Cruickshank defeats Anthony Njokuani by unanimous decision with the judges' scorecards reading 30-27, 30-27, 30-27. And Fred went with Cruickshank by TKO in 2, 4 points. Eddie went with Cruickshank by TKO in 3, 4 points. And I went with Cruickshank by TKO in 2, 4 points. So on this event here, I believe I mentioned earlier on there that Rich and Eddie went 3-0, and Fred went 2-1. I went 3-0 with 18 points out of 30. Eddie went 3-0, 15 points out of 30. Fred went 2-1 with 8 points out of 30. And when we look and tally all those numbers up between the two events there, Rich went 4-2, and Eddie and Fred went 3-3. Rich went 4-2 with 25 points out of 60. Eddie went 3-3, 15 points out of 60, and Fred went 3-3 with 12 points out of 60. All right, real quickly here, the fight bonuses for this event here. Fight of the night bonus went to Chris Kalaitis. Is that how you say that guy's name?
I think so.
And Patrick Houlihan, earning $50,000 each. Roy MacDonald wins a $50,000 performance of the night bonus for his finish of Tariq Saffiedine by TKO due to strikes at 128 of round 3. And Olivia Auburn Mercer wins a $50,000 performance of the night bonus for his finish of Jake Lindsay by submission due to inverted triangle choke at 322 of round 2. That was a pretty impressive performance by Auburn Mercer there. That was the guy from Tough, man, and he was looking good on the Tough show there. That guy looks like he's going to be some sort of a prospect in the division, somebody that the other guys are going to have to contend with, huh?
Yeah, Alba Mercier is interesting, man. He had a lot of hype before, and then he had a loss to Chad LaPree, the same guy that fought on this card.
Yeah, that kid
Uh,
looked good too last night, huh?
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, Chad LaPree is super tough. He actually, Albin Mercier had lost a decision to him, and Mercier had a lot of hype coming into that fight. He's a fantastic submission artist, as obviously you can tell with that performance. It'll be interesting to see how they handle him. I think he needs to be kind of moved up the ladder slowly. He's got a lot of talent, but his other skills definitely need some time to develop.
Okay. Any more comments on that event?
The only thing I got to say about this event, I don't know if you noticed or what your issues was with your cable settings, but the fucking baseball game. I don't know what inning it actually ended in, but
18th inning.
what the fuck was up with that, man? It took me forever to find the card because I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Thank God, fucking Dana White tweeted that it was on FX, so I'm like,
Oh, yeah, I announced it on the site, and then I also put it on Facebook, but I know you don't do Facebook there. But yeah, I even mentioned on the pre-fight show there that because the game was on the Fox Sports 1 network, that it may be on Fox Sports 2, and then right at the last minute they bumped it to FX, so it pretty much stayed on FX for the whole fight there, the whole event there, once it got to the main card.
yeah. Once when the card was first supposed to start, I turned on Fox Sports 1. I seen the baseball games on. It's like in the bottom of the 10th or some shit. I don't know much about baseball, but I know it's already in overtime, so it should be over relatively soon. The card's just starting, no biggie. Fucking 2 hours goes by. They're still playing baseball. I'm like, son of a bitch, man.
Yeah, I think they said that that game broke a history for the longest game in the history of baseball, 6 hours, and I forget exactly how long it was, but it was well over 6 hours long.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking that maybe it'll be a record breaker. That was just insane how long that baseball game. That was one of the most interesting things about the whole card. Honestly, was just a fucking baseball game going for the last 6 hours.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments?
Nope, that's it, brother.
Okay, man. Thanks, people, for listening and watching the shows that we do here. If you're into fight predictions, we do fight predictions for most of the UFC events, and we usually do a pick'em contest as well. And again, on the pick'em contest we do, you don't need to pick the method and round and finish. You just do a straight pick who's going to win. And then we usually do post-event discussion shows as well following the UFC events. Thanks for stopping by, buddy. Appreciate it. If anybody out there wants to join us on the show, stop over to MMA Chat, create an account, and let us know that you want to join us on the shows here, and we'll add you to that part of the site where you can join us on the shows to get the live streaming link. Okay, buddy. That's it.
All right, Rich. Thanks for having me, man. Maybe we can do a show this week on something while there's a couple weeks here in between with no UFC event. I think we got 2 weeks with no UFC event, so maybe we'll figure out something to do this week.
Yeah, we'll do a couple of making MMA news shows if we have time. I've got a little busy schedule this week, but yeah, we can always throw something together real quick and then just do like a one-topic show, kind of like a single final thoughts segment.
Sweet. Sweet. Sounds good, man.
All right, buddy. Have a good one. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Talk to you next time, man.
All right, have a good one.
Later.
Bye.